Hi. For those of you that don't know, my name is Garcia. I'm 21 years old, and there's something I want to share with you guys that I've been holding on for the longest time, and I wrote it into a spoken word poetry recently this year, and now I want to share it to everybody. It is tough to hear, but at the same time, just know that I survived it all these years, and I'm very optimistic about life now. So hope you enjoy it. Yeah. I see beauty in what you may see as ugly, 'cause Christ somehow saw beauty in me. So I'd rather shop his photo than Photoshop the truth. But he touched me. He touched me. Oh, the joy that floods in my soul, and something happened, and now I know he touched me. And then he touched me again. While he was supposed to be babysitting, I had never left Cruces, but now I wasn't sure what state of mind I was in. All I knew is that I was about 4, going on 5, and I wasn't afforded the opportunity to decline, but will be defined as my first sexual encounter. Physical pain was secondary and compares how much my mind hurt, that I couldn't erase the fact that we were on third base, now feared what will be forthcoming. I went from studying my 1, 2, 3s to three-way conversations with birds and bees. My thought process became a huge powder that the world never sees. Child life was no longer as easy as A, B, C. A, B, C. Always believed Christ, didn't ever feel God had inadvertently, just knowingly left me. Now, oppressing penetration, quickened range, Satan thought ugly variations would execute youthful sane. But I wanted to know why. I was searching for a sign. I said I was searching for a sign. Why was this happening to me? Why was I being woken up out of my sleep to watch cartoons? I was a small child making requests to oral sex, not because I liked it, but because it hurt less. Every time a sex theme would pop on the TV screen, I would fake sick the next day and go back and watch how my grandma wouldn't allow me to see. Every issue begins with a small seed, so be careful what you're planting in your spirit. 'Cause even though most fill up watching them graphic videos for your enjoyment alone, please take note and allow me to feel warmth. That 87% of child molesters admit to trying to imitate something they saw from watching porn. And then he touched me. This time, it was my other uncle, now sexually involved with the second man. All I knew is that I was about 9, going on 10. I was 9, going on 10. What would have made someone want to touch their own niece? My mind trying to make sense in his intentions. All the time teachers are saying she doesn't focus, she doesn't pay attention. I was going to every extent I knew, but still I was frightened, couldn't be forgotten. I felt used and thrown away like paper cups and plastic utensils. But still, I was 9, going on 10. As soon as my older brother went to sleep, he told me to come sit on his lap. He kept shifting me in very uncomfortable positions, which I was so much familiar with because of the first encounter. My heart was beating out of my chest, and my tears began to roll down my eyes. That night, I went to sleep underneath my bed, went home the next day, and smiled like nothing ever happened. Why? Because Satan is a deceiver, one who gives false impression, had me to believe it had to be something that I had done. Why else would 2 grown men come after me? So I began to change the way I dressed. Started wearing baggy clothes because I figured it would draw less attention. Every Sunday I went to church wishing that they could see in my eyes what I didn't have the courage to verbalize, and they saw it right. A Bible class was held for morning service. My name was brought to the front of the church as an example of what not to wear. They were so out of touch, so unaware. I just wish for one moment, just one moment, that someone will look past the fact that I was wearing pants and more towards why I didn't want to wear a dress. I just wish for one moment that someone will look past the fact that I was wearing pants and more towards why I didn't want to wear a skirt. I stood there quietly, but on the inside, I was screaming. Can anyone see that I'm hurting? Or should we continue this debate of denominations and what the women are wearing to holy complications? I said Satan is a deceiver, one who gives false impression. I assumed numbness meant healing. I just had to be delivered, because even though the side of me I hated, took no pride in how I looked, because I figured no one would want someone that's been molested. That's just nasty. On top of complicated, so I took the pain, stored it in the back of my brain, threw it in the savings, and intentionally forgot the combination. They prayed for healing, so I had to be delivered, right? Or at least I figured. But years later, it became obvious that I could no longer put a band-aid on a wound that needed surgery. God had to be looking down like that's not why I allowed it, or who I created her to be. I created the heavens and pretended like things never happened. Thought I can create my own healing, which included reading, praying, and fasting. But the wound was infected. It spread in every area of my life, all because I didn't want to sign the consent form to go into God's knife. I didn't want the surgery. I didn't want to face reality. I didn't want to answer him or him to answer me. What kind of God would allow an innocent child to be molested? Well, allow me to share with you one of the most beautifulest and ugliest revelations. That same God who sent his own son to die on a cross, that most will be ungrateful for, and even more would take lightly, and even more would crucify him again with our actions. And although there was no violence around his mouth, he pleased the Lord to bruise him. That doesn't make sense to us. But his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. The glory of Christ is the resurrection, but you can't just skip the cross. You can't just skip all the sufferings and all the souls that he came for that were lost. You can't just skip all the sufferings and all the souls that he came for that were lost. There is light at the end of this tunnel. You may not see it, but he sees it clear. But some of us are running to the dark, to fear. God has amazing plans for us, but we got hang-ups. Hung up on trying to figure out why. Hung up on why us and not some other child. Hung up on why we were the ones who had to deal with it. And hung up on not being able to forgive. Christ is the ultimate of hang-ups. He was hung up for you. He was hung up for me. So enough with the hang-ups, because hang-up runs supreme. So, to every little girl and every little boy who's felt defenseless, to every man and every woman who's felt the enemy beating them tenseless, to every soul that's cried in the middle of the night so that no one would hear, for every face buried in pillows to hide the tears, for every voice that's tried to speak loud. It really, really tries, but gets a knot in their throats every single time. For every throat that the enemy tries to choke with heavy impressive air, Christ is the breath of life. Let him be your inhaler. Like Paul said, I reckon that the sufferings of the risen time are just not worthy to be compared of the glory that should be revealed in us. Thank you.